And this is just 10 minutes. I timed it, so don't worry about it. So you guys get a chance to ask some questions. As far as how we advance the consistent life ethic, is my family, my wife and I gave up our professions, and we have traveled 125,000 miles in the last 12 years carrying this message with us. We've been in about 2,000 newspapers, maybe 200 regional network news shows, whole lot of radio. Hasn't been a national story yet, but we think at some point maybe, just maybe. Now, what you're about to hear is a version of a stump speech that I gave at Notre Dame University a couple years ago, and I give parts of this as we travel all over. So here's your consistent life ethic presidential stump speech, minus the stump. Now, March 2nd of this year, a huge storm system cut across America's Midwest, spawning a rash of killer tornadoes. USA Today reported tiny Mount Moriah Church in Marysville, Kentucky, which had just been refurbished with Colonel Sanders' money, was hit by one of those twisted and reduced to nothing but rubble. Except one thing was left intact. What was left intact was a sign out in front of the church. You know what the sign said? Have you talked to Jesus today? My guess is, if we talked to Jesus today, he'd be extremely angry. What he might be, a bit upset about is America moving into a tremendous dark reality. And the dark reality is this: we have become addicted, just absolutely addicted, to killing. It's time to wake up, America. Last year, America crossed the 50 million abortion mark. We have killed 50 million babies in their mother's wombs. And for 40 years, since Roe versus Wade, we have waited for the next pro-life president. We have waited for the next pro-life Supreme Court Justice nominee. That's just not working. For abortion to end, we have to create a climate similar to what was created in the South in order to end segregation. That means that we need to go to the streets en masse, day in and day out, and not just in front of abortion clinics, but in our neighborhoods, in front of our neighbors. A lot of people didn't want segregation to end, but they wanted those protests to end more. And it was those protests that finally drove the legislation. Wake up, America. The ball is in your court. And here's something else that has to end: global warming. Is it a pro-life issue? Well, of course it is. Hosts of scientists worldwide are saying global warming is already causing supercharged hurricanes, supercharged typhoons, more droughts and famine in more arid countries. This means moms and dads and little kids are dying right now. From what? From our lifestyles. From the greenhouse gases they generate. That's simple. At the University of Notre Dame, I was asked to sit in on a graduate history class, and actually the topic came up. It was about the first Gulf War. And what prompted us to go in? Hussein was gassing the Kurds. So what's going on now? Our lifestyles in America, which releases more carbon dioxide than any other country, is gassing what? It's gassing the world. Maybe there should be a preemptive strike against us. Seriously. But before that comes, in the face of the U.S. not signing the Kyoto Protocol, in the face of the Copenhagen Accords going nowhere substantively, we, the citizens, need to go somewhere. Actually, we need to go a lot of somewheres. on bicycles. We need to lose the air conditioning. We need to cut the heat way back. We need to sacrifice until it hurts in order to fund carbon offset projects. We need to put a Kyoto Protocol home zone sign up in our front yard right next to the anti-abortion sign. And there needs to be another sign in the front yard. An end world hunger sign. According to the UN, 24,000 moms, dads, and little kids starve to death worldwide every day. Pro-life issue? And spades. Right now, 66% of Americans are overweight. Besides being overnourished, many of us regularly drink non-nutritional beverages and eat non-nutritional junk food, to the tune of billions and billions of dollars each year. Meanwhile, these horribly stick-thin little children in Uganda and Ethiopia and Biafra are taking their last breaths with their eyes wildly imploring their parents, who are just as emaciated, to help. And all these mothers and fathers can do is hold their children tightly as they die. Are we nuts to let this go on? Just absolutely crazy, even evil? An American priest who now works in Cambodia, where these types of starvation scenes happen regularly, told me the food consumption patterns in America these days, in the face of this third world crisis, makes us nothing less than food terrorists. And he drew an analogy. He said that the day 3,000 people died in New York's Twin Towers, 24,000 people starved to death worldwide. And there was no uproar whatsoever about that, none. Eating is a moral act with lethal consequences today, potentially very lethal consequences to the people in the third world and to each of our souls in the first world. Wake up, America. Next to the Stop World Hunger front yard sign should be a no nuke sign. In the last year, America has spent approximately $50 billion to maintain our nuclear arsenal. $50 billion. And we spend more on the military than the next 17 countries. You heard that right. We say we'd never use our nuclear weapons, but we're using them now. We're using them to protect ourselves in the face of 1 billion people without access to clean drinking water, in the face of 1 billion people living worldwide in slums. So while we're protecting our lives to the nth degree in America with the military on steroids, again, moms, dads, and little kids are dying. According to the gospel message, the best thing you can do is give up your life for another. If conversely, you're backing everything possible to save your life, while all these people are dying, well, none of that's going to bode too well for eternity. Wake up, America. And these are just a few of America's killing categories. I could go on and on until the whole front yard would be filled with signs, which it will be when we get to the White House. But I think you get the point. We think ours is the best nation in the world. Mother Teresa said America was the most spiritually poor country she'd ever visited. Pope John Paul II said, we're a culture of death. So, who are we going to believe? Fox News? CNN? Mother Teresa and Pope John Paul II. My money's on the latter. We can't wait for government anymore. We can't be cautiously timid anymore. There is no time. There is no time for the next starving child wildly staring in her mother's eyes. There is no time for the people in the path of the next supercharged hurricane. There is no time for the next little baby in the womb facing dismemberment. There is no time. The killing has to stop. And it has to stop now. And if not with us, then with who? Wake up, America. The ball is in each of our courts.
Okay, we heard from all the panel, and now we have a chance to hear from you. Any comments or questions from the audience? Start over here.
No. Oh, this isn't on.
Oh, okay,
Now it
there.
is. Now it is? Nope. Well, I don't need it.
You're welcome. It's on.
Oh, is it? Hello.
Right.
Oh, fabulous. Hello. So I'm going to, full disclaimer, I'm a Ron Paul supporter, but I'm not a Republican.